Welcome to Bone Severe Podcast with Brian and Chad, where we dive headfirst into the world of hunting and fishing with a healthy dose of humor and humility. With Chad tonight, I think we've got a guest where we're going to be more a little bit with humor and humility.
That's right. We got Mr. Rodney Criswell, King Rodney.
Yeah, we talked about this before. You know, we had some stories with Rodney, and you know, we kind of have fun with a little bit of Rodney. It's probably Rodney's chance to get back at us a little bit.
That's
tonight.
right.
Whether that's good or bad.
That's what I'm excited to hear.
Yeah. Well, Rodney, both of us grew up in Bay Minette. Tell us what it was like hunting and fishing in that area when you grew up.
Well, to start with, I'm glad this is real and it's not like one of those punk things where somebody's fixing to jump out of the closet and hit me with a water balloon or something.
Well, that closet's behind you.
Oh,
So
okay.
That still may happen.
No, I'm glad to be here. And yeah, we got a long history and a lot of stories. And which one you want me to start with or which?
I don't know if we start with a story of that. I tell you what, let's do this.
I got a good one.
Okay.
This is how much that you and I love to hunt and fish.
Okay.
All right. We were just kids, and I had a little old horse at the house, and
I hate horses, by the way.
I know you do.
And I tell you, we wanted to fish so bad. There was this little stream, and it probably was 2 miles away. And we both jumped on that horse bareback. And Brian he was on back holding the fishing poles and the little tackle box. And we drove about 2 miles bareback on that thing.
You drove a road.
Well, if you saw me ride a horse, you'd question my horse driving.
Your horsemanship.
Horsemanship. That's a good word.
So you got to get this visual image because my you-know-what still feel that because I can't, if you've never ridden bareback before, you have no idea what that feels like. So I can't hold on to myself and it's hurting because I'm holding fishing equipment. So
I'm just imagining you and Rodney at this age doing that.
No, at this age doing that would look really strange. We were kids. We were young kids. How old do you think we were?
I don't know, but it was,
it's still painful.
11, 12. We could be 13, I reckon. I'm not sure.
I don't think we were that old.
I don't think we were that old either.
All right,
but
continue the story.
But we're bouncing up and down on this horse trying to hang on. And I say 2 miles. It could have been further than that. It felt like 100 miles. And we finally get there, and it's this little tiny stream.
Is that the one under the train?
Well, they had a road that they were going to put in, and they built the bridge first, and then they run out of funding. So there was this bridge in the middle of the woods down this pick trail road that just sit out there for years and years and years. And so we go under that bridge and catch brim that was, we call it brim, but they were about 1.5 inches long.
But we were fishing. Fishing.
But that's how much we love to hunt, to fish, whatever. We just had to get out there.
I thought he was about to tell me he caught 12-inch brim.
Nah.
Oh no. These things were they
were brim bait.
It was amazing that they could actually hook themselves.
Yeah, it had to been some real small hooks to hook these things, but
the after effect, that was the worst, because the next day I could barely get out of bed, and I couldn't walk with my legs together. I had them spread apart and just kind of waddled everywhere I went. And the inside of my legs were just blistered red. So that was the last bareback riding that I ever did.
I think we switched to 4-wheeler after that. Yes. You had a 4-wheeler, right?
Actually, it was a 3-wheeler.
That's right. It was 3-wheeler. Chad, you ever seen a 3-wheeler?
Yeah.
Okay.
I've ridden on one.
Okay. I didn't know if that was way before you.
I didn't know if we had to draw you a little picture to tell you what it looked like.
It looked like a little tricycle.
Yeah. Them things are dangerous.
Oh, man.
Oh, my goodness. Well, I know you grew up on that delta, and you probably learned to fish and hunt with your dad on that delta. What was that like kind of describe that growing up, hunting with your dad, kind of what that was like.
Well, that's one thing that my dad started me hunting when I was a kid with a 20 gauge single shot, crack it open, and we would do it on dog drives, and they would set out. You get on back of a truck, and it'd be 20 degrees, and you get on back of that truck, and that was prior to insulation, basically. So you basically had 3 shirts on, and
Yeah, wasn't nothing,
they wasn't
nothing camo.
there was no suits or anything like that, and your camo was army flags from some salvage store somewhere.
Remember they had that one on Government, wasn't it
Government Street
in
yes.
Mobile? You
Yeah,
had
the
to
Army
go.
Navy store.
Yep, you had to
Yeah.
go get Army flags.
Yeah.
And that was your camo. I remember that.
So you're on back of those trucks just freezing to death, and they were dropping you off ever so many feet. And they would let the dogs out, and then you would sit there, and the dogs start running, and my dad always said, "Now listen, don't wait for the dogs. The deer's gonna be way ahead of them." And of course, as a little kid, you go, "Oh, there went the deer,"
Dad, I saw one.
And then when you get more used to it after you start going, you like, I'm shooting, so half the time when I fired at one, it was probably 20 feet behind it, But
good old buckshot.
Yeah. And that's how we started hunting. And my dad used to love to steel hunt, and, he would go out there, and the stands back then, they had stands, but they were the little small things, and you had little handrails that you pulled yourself up. I mean, the most dangerous possible thing you could ever try to do. And I mean, they were so small. So most people didn't have ladders. I mean, not ladder stands, but climbers. So my dad was always, I mean, he was an excellent hunter, and he would lean against an oak tree and just lay his head back, take him a little nap, and he'd wake up and there'd be a buck there. And he killed a lot of bucks just sitting on the ground in that army lodge. And, then he taught me how to do it, except for the fact that I'm not so good at being still. And I was glad ladder stands and climbers came along.
Yeah, you remember those first ladder stands, those ones you make. You remember those ones we had out at the club that we had out there on 225 or whatever. I think didn't we have some ladder? We had the condo. Remember the condo?
Yes, remember the
It was
condo.
a big old platform, and you just kind of sat up on the platform. But that thing was probably 8x8. I mean, you could get up there and lay down on it. 2 or 3 people could lay down on
That's
it.
my stuff.
And you sitting there on top of the platform. But there was a lot of stands back then when you go to hunting places like that. There'd be, like we talked about in the earlier episode, where there'd be spikes in the trees you're climbing at, or you got those homemade, somebody's cut wood and you're using those as your steps. We always had stuff like that in the woods.
Right. And, those ladders, they'd make them out of 2x4s, and just a wood bottom leaned against the tree. And there's a lot of deer killed out of those things. We have all this fancy stuff we have now and spend a lot of money, but those guys used to kill some deer back then. Now, definitely people are a lot more selective on their kills and things these days than back then. Back then it was about eating it,
Right.
So
you didn't have Sitka camo back then.
Man, I tell you what,
he don't have stick of camo now.
Whatever was at a salvage store or Kmart. Kmart was our big hunting outdoor store.
So that ought to tell you how big that hunting section was.
Oh, yeah.
Kmart. So, I hunted with Rodney a little bit, probably the first few hunting trips. We talked about going hunting with my dad, stuff like that, but really getting into hunting kind of happened with me hanging out with Rodney. And, he and his dad were instrumental in kind of really getting me started in it. I'd been here and there and gone a little bit and hunted some dog drives and stuff like that. But as far as still hunting, we really started still hunting together probably while we were into high school, for college in that time frame.
Right.
Before then it was just I get invited to go somewhere with my dad and stuff like that, or I get invited to go up on the river swamp, and do stuff like that. But when he and I really started hunting together, that's when it got serious. Because if you don't know me and Rodney well enough, which you do now, it's a competition.
Oh yeah,
So it's like
it's always been.
it's a
Since I've
competition.
known y'all.
It goes for everything. If we're trying to, a glass of water, who can drink it the fastest and get it down? Snow skiing. Oh, I know this is hunting.
Hey, this is a hunting and fishing show. We don't need to bring up the snow
we can
skiing.
carry that though, because here's what Rodney does, and he's beat me, I beat him on some stuff, so we kind of go back and forth on this. But Rodney always wants to blame me for everything, and what I always say, and you know this because I've told you, it's about choices. And when we would get in trouble in high school with everything, he goes and tells stories. He'd tell my wife, they've already heard the stories 50 million times, but he always wants to blame me. If it's an accident during the hunting season or if it's a fishing trip, he falls out the boat or anything like that.
It's your fault.
It's my fault. But it always comes down to his choices, and that's what I try to get across to.
But the whole every single time has his name attached to it. So, what is the variable here?
I think the variable is Rodney's not making good choices.
All right, now I'm the guest. You're supposed to take my side.
Yeah, so he always wants to blame that thing. But we talk about funny stories.
So I want to. Who's won most of the competitions?
We're probably about even on everything. I would think. Now he's winning the competition like falling off the log the most or stuff like that. That's not the competition. But as far as both of us had killed real good deer.
Yeah.
Both of us had killed turkeys. Okay. He's had the opportunity to do better than us the last few times. But we both have nice deer, from the same location.
Yeah.
I got him first on the 10 point. I had 2 or 3 10 points for him. He finally, when did you get one last year?
1 year before last.
Yeah, 2 years ago. So he finally, and he and I are the same age now, so that, and he's done a lot of hunting, and that goes to show you he's killed bigger deer than that 10 point, but it's something about killing that first 10 point. It's a totally different feeling.
It's amazing that I've been all these years and seen all these people, and that was the very first 10 point since I was, I've been hunting since I was old enough to tote the gun and go with Dad, and that was the very first 10 point that I've ever seen in the woods out of years of hunting every year. If some people will go out and start hunting and kill a 10 point the first week.
Yeah. Hang it up, retire.
Yeah. But that was always a thing. And it just so happened my first 10 point was at this location we talked about on 225. And I didn't even know it was a 10 point. He and I were out there hunting one day, and I saw this doe fly by. And you know me, a lot of times I don't wait for them to stop. I shoot on the run. And y'all know that.
Campbell.
Yeah, because I think I kill more deer. If they're still, I miss them. If they're running, I can hit them. But this thing, I stuck that rifle in that scope in that hole, and that doe went through that scope, and the next thing that went through it, I just shot. I knew it was a buck. Well, me and Rodney went looking for it. We didn't find any blood, did we?
Not a single drop.
Not a single drop.
As a matter of fact, when he said, I said, where was he standing? He says he wasn't standing. He was running wide open. And I said, where? He says, see that little bitty hole in them briars right there? He comes through that little, I timed it where he went right through.
But that was still about 70 yards away. It wasn't like close. It was 70 yards away. But it was just opening.
I looked at him like, let's go home. You did not hit no deer running through that. And whoa, was I wrong? I mean, there was no blood.
There was
nothing. And
he and I were kind of walking, parallel with each other where we could cover some ground. He was about 20 yards from me, and we were walking, looking on both sides of each other. And we come to this creek back there behind. And I looked, and they're pointing out of the water. And I reached over and grabbed horns and put them up out of the water. And I went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. It's a 10 point.
And I looked and I said, man, that's like a perfect shot. Oh, you hit him wrong, Brian. That's why he ran.
Yeah.
It was on the money, but I wasn't going to say it. I mean, I can say I was highly impressed with that shot, no doubt.
So why do you think you can shoot like that?
I don't know. But you are, that's the only one really. I shoot a lot of deer on the run, and most of the time it's more than one shot because somebody say, hey, what have you got World War III going on over there? What's going on down there? You done shot 3 or 4 times, and
but still, that's still difficult to do.
yeah, and when they're dead still, sometimes it's like I shoot and they just stand there and I'm like, what happened? Then they trot off and I shoot them while they trotting off and I'm like, what's going on?
I think it's because you're thinking about it.
It must be because when you don't think about it and you put it up there,
it's reacting. You're reacting.
I'm putting it right in front of the shoulder. I'm aiming. If they're running, there's no tan in the scope. No. It's just right on the very edge, and it hits them right there. It's crazy. But I've killed a lot more deer chasing than I have with a deer. Like the first one I shot on the farm, it was standing dead still, and I missed it.
Right.
And it trotted off, and I said, I'm just going to shoot it in the neck because it was kind of trotting away, and I shot, and boop, right in the neck, went straight down. I'm like, why couldn't I hit it? I missed it at like 60, and I hit it trotting at like 120.
Yeah.
So go figure. I don't know.
Well, I like them when they stand really still. But yeah, I mean, we've had a lot of good times deer hunting and
and fishing too.
Now we fish.
We used to fish.
We used to lay with it. I'm talking bass.
I've heard some bass stories.
Oh, we were into the bass fishing, and we had a good time with it. And
we went with his dad one time. You got to tell this story about your dad. Rodney tells it better because Rodney's a little bit more dramatic with the stories, and it comes out so much better. Tell us about the time.
Well,
with your dad.
All right. It was still kind of cold. I mean, it was that March nip, right when those bass start hitting, and he had his jacket on still, and I was in the back of the boat and he was in the front, and I dropped like a rubber worm or something on the ground, and I reached down and picked it up and I turned around and he's gone. I mean, we're like in the middle of nowhere, swamp, creek, river down in the Delta.
Weren't we in Smith Creek?
I think so.
I think that's where we were.
Both of y'all were there?
Yeah, I was in the middle of the boat. So.
And he's gone. I mean, literally, there's no sight. There's no sign he was ever there. I mean, and
there's no
ripples on the water.
The water's just flat.
I mean, I thought the rapture. Me and Brian got left behind, man. What happened?
Some of those Friday and Saturday nights caught up with us and we didn't get to go.
And I'm just standing there in solid disbelief and quiet. And all of a sudden, just out of the water, he comes out like Free Willy the whale out the top of the water. And he's going, oh. And anyway, we can't get him in the boat. He's a bigger guy, and can't get him up on that boat. So we get back by the motor and just basically drag him across the top of the bottom of the boat and flop him over in it. And he is freezing to death. And we were like, what happened? He said, did one of y'all shove me? He says, I was letting the trolling motor down, and next thing I know, he said, I just fell straight down. He said, this is no kidding. I went straight down, and I was so far down that I had to turn myself up and turn myself toward the light and swim toward the light. He said, that's how deep I went. He said, I finally got to the top and I busted out of the top of the water. He said, to start with, I didn't even know what happened. He said, I don't know how deep I was. He said, it was like one of those, movies where you're, the divers are trying to get to the light to get up to get breath, But we laughed about that. And
We didn't laugh at the beginning.
at the beginning we were scared.
We're scared 'cause we didn't know where he went, and we were really considering the rapture there. We really it was
So how long of a time span
It
was
just
this?
seemed like,
Yeah.
I know
It
it was
couldn't have been that
probably
long.
it couldn't have been
Right.
that long,
Right.
but it seemed like forever. Because there's no sign, there's no ripples, there was no sound that he went splash or something. It was just solid quiet.
It was that perfect 10.0 dive.
Yeah. Yeah. That's it. Your dad misses calling.
But he's such a good sport because he was sitting there and his teeth were chattering, and we were like, let's get you home, get you some clothes on. And he was like, no, I don't mind. I'm okay. We can fish. I can go. I said, Daddy, come on, man. You got your jacket.
Hey, we were still laughing. No, it becomes funny at that point.
Yeah, at
You're
that
laughing.
time, we're
It would get silent again, and all of a sudden one of us start snickering. And it's
Yeah.
like being in church. You can't quite, you get the giggles and you can't stop.
Right.
So it was.
Yeah, we've had some fun times with my dad. And
One time, I'll bring this because Mr. Criswell, you never hear him cuss. Never. Okay. Rodney, though, one time, Rodney's fishing, and I think he's got a crawdad color crankbait on or something like
it
that.
was a rattle trap.
Oh, okay.
Big old white and black rattle trap, the big one with the two treble hooks on both ends. And
He got it stuck there.
from the limb, and I jerked it from the limb, and it hit him in back of the head. And he started hollering, and he was like, "Who hit me?" And we're like, and I was just out there saying nothing, and then all of a sudden he said, "Did you hit me with a crescent wrench?"
But he added a little word in there that I never heard come from him before, and that's what made it so funny, because he had him a little bit. It wasn't a bad word, but it was good enough to like. When he said that, I lost it. And then he starts looking at Rodney, and it's almost like
He knew.
that hand me that flashlight look.
Yeah. He knew.
He knew what had happened.
Yeah, because especially since I was like silent, just like
Oh man.
yeah.
So did y'all only hunt deer and fish, or did y'all do any other hunting growing up?
Well, we fished and we hunt deer. Of course, we go after the squirrels as kids and things like that. But as far as the turkey hunting stuff, I'd went with a couple people, and I'll tell you what really I didn't get into turkey hunting until being older. And there's three things that got me into it and addicted to it, and that was the thermocell, snake boots, and Brian Campbell, because those three things
They added up.
and Brian taught me how to turkey hunt, and that's an important thing, because a lot of people just think that they can just walk out in the woods and just sit there and watch YouTube and scratch a thing, and that's, yes, that can happen. That happens to people, but it's nice to have a buddy and go with someone who can hear. I mean, once I went with him, I realized that I may have heard turkeys before and didn't realize
Didn't realize you were hearing them.
Right, because I'm thinking the turkey's going to be out in front of us or around me. I'm not realizing, hey, that's a bird in the next bottom. Let's go that way,
Right,
and get close to him. And with him teaching me things like that, and I just got the bug after that. And one of the first times he took me, we were sitting there, and it was like opening day, I think, and it was freezing. We had bibs and giant jackets and gloves, and this was down in Bay Minette, and he hit that call, and we heard 5 different gobbles from 5 different directions, and I'm not talking about way off. I'm talking about pretty close all over.
Yeah, I think we're under the trees.
And he starts calling, and I was like, man alive, I didn't realize they are that loud when they're coming. I mean, this turkey sounded like he had a bullhorn, and it was just coming, and he would hit, and it would just gobble, just like head off, and my heart was about to bounce out of my chest. And the way we were set up, we had some brush in front of us, and I had a little hole, through the brush I could see, and then he was sitting beside me, and all of a sudden I see it, and I hear Brian say, "Wait, wait, wait," and I said, "Ooh." And I learned that lesson a long time ago when we used to deer hunt. Wait, wait, man, I'm shooting it.
Now, he missed part of the story. That's the second bird that come up on us. The first bird, I've got a fire lane. So I'm sitting on the left side. He's on the right side. Well, the first bird, remember, this is first time. We went on the farm one time and we killed one there. That was the first time.
Yeah, I think you're right. You're right.
This was the real hunt, though. But I've got one coming up the fire lane. And I said, Rodney, be still. There's one. You know what he does? He leans over in my lap and goes, where? And that bird just ran off. And I'm like, I got some words under my breath there a little bit. Yeah. So we shut up for a little bit. Then I call again and we get another one. So the one he's talking about is the second bird we had. We could have doubled up that day. Man, wouldn't that have been something to double up? But yeah, I said, wait, because I saw him in that other hole. I had a different vision. See, here comes the competition part.
But
he beat me.
I said you wouldn't get me, buddy. And I shot that thing, and I tell you what, I thought I'd, won an Olympic medal or something shooting it,
Yeah, it's a big bird too.
Yeah,
real
absolutely.
Big bird.
But the other bird had a great story with it also. We were sitting up in the field down in Robertsdale out at the farm, and that bird, it flew down, it in a couple of hens, and
we had four birds in front of us. Okay. I remember four birds. We had four birds in front of us, but I'm looking in that roosting tree, and all season long, I was after there was a triple beard in there, and I'm looking at him. Okay. So I'm sitting there, those other birds are in front of us, and we've got a gobbler in front of us, and Rodney's kind of like, you going to shoot that one? You going to shoot? And I'm just kind of looking, and I'm not ready. He's got his gun up a little bit, and I'm still calling a little bit, trying to get that triple beard to fly out of that tree. Well, I hand him the call because he's about to fly down. Well, when I hand him the call, I'm getting my gun up, and he's supposed to put it to the side. Well, when he does it, that striker goes across the top of that slate call, goes, and the one that was right out in front of us is on a beeline.
That thing
right at us
runs wide open. I'm talking wide open, and I'm watching it get closer and closer and closer and closer. And I'm turned sideways, so my gun's pointing the other way. And it gets, I'm sitting here going, and then finally I just go, Brian, shoot it.
I'm still looking up at the tree.
He shoots this thing, and it slides like one of those lions you see on one of those shows where there are lions running at that falls in the dirt and the dust flies up. Well, that's kind of what this looked like. But man, I was like, this thing's fixing to just claw me. Oh, hey, I'm not lying. That thing, I don't know what would have happened.
Yeah.
Because he was on it now. And Brian, of course, Brian lit him up, and he tasted great. But but you talk about getting into it and all, and this is where I'll give you a plug. Brian knows that, us rednecks, we spend 20% of our salary on turkey calls and firecrackers, So, so he knows that,
I don't buy no fireworks.
I was about to say,
Brian is tight with his money. He ain't buying fireworks.
But Brian can tell you that every time he saw me, I said, "Look at this new turkey call that I bought. Look at this new turkey call that I bought." And he was like, "God almighty, how many do you have?" And I finally, when you guys got your business kicked off, and I bought the Osage Orange with the laminate striker, and that has changed my turkey hunting. I mean, absolutely. I went into a different level of turkey hunting.
Yeah, because all the birds you've killed here recently, you've killed with that one call.
One call. I have one call in my bag. I take that call, and if there's a turkey that wants to be, I assume bred would be the word, that thing is going to get it stirred up and going.
I was upset at Brian when he sold you that call, because that was one we were just showing off and letting them test, because that was one I had perfected it, and I'm like, yes, this one sounds good. I walk off, go to the bathroom somewhere. Hey, I sold that Osage call to Rodney. I was like, are you kidding me?
This is no kidding, guys. I killed one about a week or two ago, and as soon as I hit it, I mean, I walked that thing from way off all the way to me, and I, finally got the shot, and but that thing, if there's one there, it will answer that call. And last year I went out to Texas to kill me a Rio, and we get with a guide, and he basically just drives us around, and we get there. He says, "All right." He drove to a spot, and he said, "Call and see if we hear anything." I hit that thing. I mean, he wasn't far, going crazy. I mean, in 10 minutes, and this place wasn't known for turkey hunting. It's a deer outfit slash,
Exotic.
and they have wild turkeys, and they kind of fill that little area of their time because it's downtime for them. And the guy looked, his eyes, it was about to bug out, and he's like, "Whoa." And I think it shocked him. So we jumped, set up. I hit that thing, and that thing would not stop gobbling coming to that call. And I walked him up, and finally just, that I just blew it, just lit him up. Beautiful bird, long, long beard. And I'm sitting there going, man, that call, I'm telling you, if you're Bones and Beards, if you're not an owner of a Bones and Beards call, you need to buy one, because I'm a living example that you can change, it'll bring you to a different level of turkey hunting. And, I was with my son. So we killed that bird. He goes, "Well, let's go to the other side of the property." And he says, "There's a little creek down there, and just let you call." Hit that call again. Two birds just blowing up, puffed up. I hit that call, get him in, and walk him on down, and my son shoots him, and the other one goes to run off. So I hit that call again, and gave it a couple scratches, and the other one just stops, turns around, walks back. The other one's flopping on the ground, and starts walking, in the area that my gun's lined up. And I see a hole, and it steps in it, big old beautiful long beard. And you hit two tags out of Texas, and I pull out my gun, and I can't see my sights because my strap over top of my gun. So I moved my gun strap, and anyway, gone.
Yeah. Well, we got a surprise for you tonight. That last turkey you killed, instead of having just the Osage Orange call, now you're gonna have that. We did a new call for you in the zebra wood is what we did in. So you've now got a crystal call with your turkey feathers in it. So we're gonna give that to you tonight. So that's up to you. It looks so good. I don't know if you want to use it or not. You may want to just put it on the shelf.
Oh, that's great.
But people, yeah, if you're out there listening, I know Father's Day is coming up. So if anybody, if you've killed a bird, or your dad's killed a bird, your uncle, anybody that you would like to give them a nice Father's Day gift for, we'd be glad to put those feathers in that call. Or if you want to put a picture, we got a couple of picture calls that we got to get finished this week, Chad.
Yeah.
So that's a couple things we need to do. So we appreciate Rodney coming on here. You know, we're about out of time here. We're a little bit over, but we had some good stories, so we'll take a little bit over. We've gone to 40 minutes before, but we try to stay around 30. But we appreciate Rodney coming in. It's been fun talking about stories. And just like we always say, if you're not in the woods or on the water, you don't know what you're missing.